Hey guys, what's up? It's me, MC Matador here with part 5 of my top 150 coaster Countdown Calamity, covering entries number 90 through 76. Now, I don't have a prelude for this, but I wanted to inform you that I just got a new laptop for myself. I'm going off to college next month, so it's mostly for school purposes, but my setup on this laptop is coming with me for YouTube. So you'll see some different formatting, some different text sizes, some different layouts, since this is a much newer computer than the one I used prior, because that was in my room. This is now my laptop, my own. So I just wanted to let you know if things look different because I got a new laptop. With that out of the way, let's get going. Number 90 and 89 are two SNS Free Spin Joker clones. I personally prefer the one at Six Flags Great America at number 89, but Six Flags New England is the only other one I've ridden, and it's at number 90. I mean, they debuted in 2015, and it took me a couple years to get on my first one until it came to my home park in 2017, pretty much right after its public debut. And I got on 2018 Six Flags New England, so 1 year after debut as a walk-on, because it was like the first thing I did, make sure to pick up the credit. Like I said, I slightly prefer Great America's to New England's, but the ride is so similar, but yet also kind of has that element where each ride is different every time. It doesn't really matter about favorites in the long run, unless I get on like Arashi or the original at Fiesta Texas. I'm probably not gonna have much disparity between any of the other clones I ride. If I make it to Great Adventure or over Texas or Discovery Kingdom or other parks that have SNS for 40 free spins. Moving on, we have number 88, Whizzer, the second coaster from my home park on this second entry alone. Another popular home park favorite down. It's an antique, yet still amazingly popular family coaster. Last of its kind in North America. I think there are other Schwarzkopf speed racers operating in Colombia. I think there's one like Belarus. But yeah, this is extremely unique credit for American coaster enthusiasts to get. It's more sentimental, this ride, to me than quality. But the net loss of minus 4% kind of does explain that I've been favoring heavier thrills as I age closer and since I've turned 18, essentially. Yeah. I've been riding this thing almost every time I visited for basically a decade now. Vintage, unique, and still quite good after nearly 45 years of family-friendly thrills. I think the 45th season is coming up next season. Number 87 is WildOne. Like everything else at Six Flags America, I have not ridden this thing in 5 years, but from what I recall, it was a fun, but yet bumpy ride with some good moments of floater airtime, and the typical Six Flags America terrible ops. A lot of the classic wooden coasters you'll be seeing come up on those next parts of the list have gone up, because I've realized that classic vintage wooden coaster is a more popular type of roller coaster than I'd like to think. It's got some good stuff in it. And I'd love to be able to go to Six Flags America, especially as I can get in for free. And I can ride this thing again in the future at some point, because I'd love to get another ride on this thing, see if it really holds up to this position at number 87, or goes up. I can see it doing either or. Number 86 is Viper at Six Flags Great America, a third coaster from my home park in this segment. Now, if I made this list 3 to 5 years ago, this would be in my top 50% of coasters at all time. Not top 50, top 50%, which would probably be in like the 60s or something. With Six Flags being Six Flags, they, don't properly maintain this thing as it aged. This thing is over 20 years old now. And it feels like they haven't touched it very much in like 5-10 years. Like easily 5 years. So, as the time has passed, it's gotten rougher and rougher and rougher. It does pack some good moments of ejector air, some strong ones of that, but unfortunately, Great America doesn't seem to put a lot of emphasis in maintaining their traditional woodies very well. Both Eagle and Viper, Eagle being in the last part, really do need help. And they're definitely getting to the point where they're almost uncomfortably rough in some areas. And yes, I've decided, I've done it every time, I don't ride in a wheel seat. Also, the net gain of plus 0.3 is, it's negligible. It's approximately where it was in percentile last year. Number 85 is Blue Streak at Cedar Point. Small, compact, unsuspectingly fun, and has been operating without a hiccup since the 1950s. So, absolutely vintage and iconic for the park. It's the oldest operating coaster at Cedar Point. It's not too tall, not too fast, not too long, but it compensates for that with a pretty satisfactory family-friendly ride with good mix of floater and ejector airtime. And I found this to be smoother than even a lot of other coasters, such as Viper, American Eagle, and WildOne. Testament to Cedar Point's good treatment of their last remaining wooden coaster since Mean Street got transformed to Steel Vengeance, which you will see much later on. Number 84 is Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Over Georgia, another vintage traditional Woody. So from the last time I've ridden it, it actually has been designated as an Ace Landmark coaster for being fantastic, well kept, and vintage. It's opening in the 1960s or 70s or something. And it has good airtime all throughout the course. It's a bit bumpy, bumpier than other PTC vintage wooden coasters like Screaming Eagle, or Racer at Kings Island. But it definitely achieves its goal and is a fantastic ride that I wish to ride again. Just because I hadn't been over Georgia in 2015. I've heard it's still packing pretty good. Number 83 is Vortex at Carowinds. Yes, I'm putting a stand-up coaster above these seemingly good Woodies. I was honestly very impressed with Vortex. I was going into it thinking from other people saying that it was going to be one of the worst rides in the park, like worse than Nighthawk, which you can now clearly see where that's gone. It was rough, it was bumpy, it was headbanger. Nope, I found this thing to be a fantastic, underrated, decently smooth coaster with some good positive G's and a rather compact layout. Still a mess in other regards, particularly having only 6 rows per train in operations, but it rides great, especially since being, open in 1992 or whatever it is. I think it's been open for at least 25 years. That goes to show how timeless B&Ms are. They don't die, and they never will. Number 82 is another vintage and the last ever built B&M stand-up, Georgia Scorcher. Now, unlike Vortex, I absolutely want to see this thing preserved for all of time. This thing, I probably would like it even more if I went back and rode it again, especially with its brand new coat of paint looking spiffy with that red and dark gray. It looked awful. What was it, like dull yellow and chipping purple? Paint's chipping all over the place. I'm so glad it got a facelift this past off-season. And it probably runs better than ever. I've never had a good experience with a B&M stand-up coaster before this, having only ridden Iron Wolf and Mantis, and Apocalypse as well. So this was my first ever good B&M stand-up. And this one definitely proved it can be an excellent ride. It's truly a diamond in the rough, and I put this in the upper half of the park. Still really good. I could probably see myself even putting this above some of the clones if I really got sentimental. But, alas, it still has its issues. It's particularly, stand-up's not a perfect model. It's hit or miss. But for a stand-up coaster, it's really good, and I don't want to see it any other way. This was engineered to be a stand-up. Number 82 is Magnum XL200. I'm starting to pull the controversy card already. Yep, this one's a divider amongst members of the coaster community. A lot of people stand on very different, almost polar ends of this ride and on their opinion on it. And I stand on the side where I think this is definitely antiquated. Obsolete, almost. And this ride still packs amazing ejector airtime, don't get me wrong. But it doesn't do it right. The restraints are inappropriate for the ride. The Gemini, a more tame family racing coaster, uses the exact same restraints as Magnum XL200. And it uses very similar restraints to Cedar Creek Mine Ride. These restraints are not meant to deal with ejector airtime very much, especially on the aggressiveness of our Magnum. And the fact that the airtime hills are also triangular in shape, which leads to a very unique yet aggressive sense of air. I've ridden this thing in every major row, pretty much, and I keep giving this thing second chances, but I can't seem to get it up in regards to the pain levels. It can't really be at a tolerable level. I might just be sensitive, but this thing is engineered in a way that has a major blow to the potential of the ride. I mean, it definitely was a fantastic ride back when it opened in the 80s into the 90s. But now with B&M Hypers, especially one in the same state that's significantly better in Diamondback, I think that, it's kind of obsolete almost. I mean, I'd love to see this thing preserved. I think it's also an ace landmark for being the first ever hypercoaster in North America, if not ever. Can't remember if this or Fujiyama came first. But this thing should definitely be preserved, but it's not necessarily for me. Especially since Cedar Point has so many other fantastic rides. I'll still give this thing a spin as a chance, but just know that this is not my type of ride. It's a bit too painful for my liking. If you like this thing, nothing wrong with that. I could see how people can like it if they're a little more tolerant and towards pain levels than me. Or if they just doesn't bother them. I'm not going to spend time defending myself. This is my opinion, and I hope you can understand, because a lot of this is just my opinion. I'll definitely ruffle some feathers later on in this video as well, so be prepared for that. Number 80 is a new Revolution, a brand new challenger from Los Angeles. First ever modern coaster to feature a modern vertical loop, other than the Frankenstein experiments in the 1920s and prior. It's a crowd pleaser almost 45 years after its opening. This thing has been open as long as Six Flags Great America itself. It might feature a very obnoxious amount of block breaks, spelled wrong, sorry about that, and mid-course brake runs or whatever it is. It slows down the ride a lot almost after every major turn. But the way this ride is built is just stand out. Really good in the terrain despite some weird odors around certain parts being right around the sewer system. My favorite moment has to be that drop right before the loop. You stand, you brake right into a not very steep, like a 40 degree drop, just staring down the loop, knowing that you're going to go through it no matter what you do. No matter if you scream, no matter if you cry, no matter if you close your eyes, you're going through it. You're just staring it down. And you slowly pick up speed until going to a rather forceful moment on the ride in the signature vertical loop that literally flips you into history. I mean, this thing is also the first ride of the day at Magic Mountain. I'm pretty sure it's the only ride that was open for the park opening, because Magic Mountain's a dump when it comes to operations. But still, I'm not going to dock it for that. I don't dock rides based on operations often. But yes, this thing definitely packs a punch. And yes, I'm not blasphemous for putting this next pod of coasters over Magnum. Number 79 is Super Duper Looper at Hershey Park. Another terrain-based Schwarzkopf looper that improves directly on Revolution's flaws. This one was originally built with lap bars, unlike Revolution, which had run for 40 years with over-the-shoulder restraints, which was a sin in its own right. I found this to be a sleeper hit in my Hershey Park tour when I visited Hershey in Pennsylvania in 2015, and when I go back, I will happily re-ride this a couple times. This ride is long, it's terrain, so you get some good views of the park. You get some good interaction with the tree lines and the natural hilly terrain of the park, especially near Kissing Tower Hill. The thing has a very forceful circular vertical loop and just overall a really nice layout and very non-restraints. They're buzz bars. They don't come down very far on you at all. This thing does a lot of things right, especially for a family-friendly inverting roller coaster. Wish more parks had gotten stuff like this in their prime. Number 78 is Scorpion, the most ruthless, intense, and compact Schwarzkopf looper thus far. Total rush from beginning to end. I also was lucky enough on my first try to get a back row ride on this thing. I didn't know back then I couldn't be adamant with my seat. They were assigning seats and just letting people in, telling them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yada yada yada. And I got the back row with one of my cousins. Unfortunately, the major problem is that this thing has historically run one train. But once you get on that through the rather long queue at times, it's a great, vintage, intense, forceful, just overall blast of a coaster that should be preserved for as long as humanly possible. Not humanity possible. Wow, I really need to proofread my stuff. Sorry, guys. Number 77 will end the Schwarzkopf reign. The last stint of the Schwarzkopf coasters in a row is Mindbender at Six Flags Over Georgia. I will say that this did not meet the expectations that some other coaster enthusiasts had made out to be. I was expecting this terrain-heavy, forceful coaster that's perfectly smooth, but no. It's a little bumpy. It doesn't pack as much of a punch as others say. It didn't really stand out as well. Like, I don't remember. I think Daredevil Dive and even stood out more than this when I went. Keep in mind, it was 2015 when I went to Over Georgia, so I wasn't nearly as cultured back then. But overall, I was still very pleasantly surprised with this ride. It was a good ride. It's not bad by any means. It would have been tens of places down if it was any worse. Maybe not any worse, but if it was bad. But like every Schwarzkopf, especially this one, I want to see this thing preserved for all of time if possible. This thing is a fantastic ride. Forceful, interacts with the terrain, has good speed. But like I said, it just doesn't pack enough punch to really stand out. But when compared to the expectations that I went into this ride with. Doesn't mean it's bad by any means. And now to end the list with number 76 is X2. Yep, I apparently have lost my marbles and I've hit rocky waters. No, I am in the boat that thinks that X2 is quite overrated. And if you've seen my, overrated, underrated coasters video, you know kind of my thoughts on this already. I mean, there definitely is, it's a good ride, good forces, good positive Gs, really unique attraction that's one of a kind in the Western Hemisphere, and has some really memorable moments. The drop is insane, the Raven turns are excellent, the inversions are quite forceful as well, but there's just some things that are really holding it back. The restraints are rather convoluted. It's like a harness. Instead of it coming down over your shoulders, you have to like buckle it over your chest, and it gets quite tight, especially being a rather broad dude like me, with like broad-shouldered guy, being 6'2" as well. Well, I was a little shorter back then because it was 2017, but yeah, just about 6 feet. The rotation mechanism is a little more jarring as well as than it should be, especially for a 40 coaster where the whole gimmick is rotating seats, and the operations were, well, Magic Mountain. So you can kind of get where I'm being there. This thing definitely has a lot of flaws when it comes to operations, which, like I said, I don't dock the rides for, as well as some mechanical bits. And I wasn't really impressed with this thing. It definitely took my breath away, but kind of is just weird. It was more weird than just quality. And I'm not sold on gimmicky rides like 4D rides. I think this thing definitely has potential, and I could definitely see how some people like this thing. But if I were to try and really directly improve the ride, I would just book a ticket to Fuji-Q Highland to go ride Ichinaika. Or if I'm really crazy, book a ticket to China and go ride Dynaconda. Because those are like the non-prototype versions. They've worked out some of those kinks. So if I haven't lost all my viewership already, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. That's been my thoughts. And I've got 5 more parts of this coming up with much more quality coasters. Saying that with X2 on my screen, I know how preposterous. I just know that, I mean, these are my opinions if I really ruffled any feathers in this one. But yeah, it's gotta say, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please leave a like or comment or subscription. It means something to me, even though I've kind of been off the game a little bit for replying to comments. My apologies. This whole summer is also getting crazy as I'm leaving for Kentucky Kingdom, Dollywood, and Holiday World in just 3 days. So I'm really in a bit of a mad dash to get everything in order before that. So probably my last video before that trip, unless I really want to pump something out on Thursday or Friday morning. And, well, I'll have a great time down there. Probably bring you some content back from those parks. Hope you guys have a great insert unit of time here. And as always, I wish you guys peace, even for my new setup.